Welcome contenders to another post-tournament video. This was one hell of a tournament and a lot to unpack, so let's get to it. After Clash Ground Makati, we went back to the off-season, which is what we call the series of T1 events like Awakenings and weekly tournaments. The meta after set 6 looked a lot like this. Anzadak and Warcry were on top with both contenders running similar cards like Saudi, Resourceful Helper, Edwards, and so on. The idea of the decks is to run as many 1cc Earth Clash cards as possible and then buff them with Zauli's effect to aggro their opponents. If your opponent attempts to board wipe with Boom or Shocking, then you can play Cybernetic Recall to dodge it. The strategy was so good that Warcry was pretty much unbeatable during set 5 meta. It was only until set 6 that players were able to find ways to beat the deck. Torque is still as strong and popular as ever, especially with the release of the Death Champion deck that featured a lot of Torque's key cards. Fangin Elemental Fury gave Torque bonus rewards for defeating Clash cards, and Elemental Manipulation gave the deck reach to remove 3 defense Clash cards. With this much data and Pro Tour right around the corner, I narrowed down my deck choices to 3: Anzudak, Kagan, and Torque. Pro Tour Nashville had some interesting decks, but I felt that the meta is totally different from here in our country. The best part of being on a team of passionate players is the lengths they would go to for the game. Bro, we booked a hotel room for 2 days and 2 nights to spend on deck building and playtesting. Ain't looked like a fucking beanbag with his cards on the floor while fine-tuning its Flip Clarity deck. We even had stats on who played who with what deck and the performance of each deck. Overall, it was a very productive bootcamp. This is the final version of my Anzudak deck. This deck is very aggressive and straightforward. Literally every main character already knows about this deck and Warcry as well. Given the amount of League of Champions wins both decks has won, this is the most anticipated deck in the season, which means players are going to be ready for it. Another problem I had with the deck is that if my opponent doesn't play Clash cards, 8 out of my 12 traps are dead. I'm hyper reliant on drawing Zhao Li. Lastly, the existence of Fangin Elemental Fury. Once that card hits the board, it's very hard for this deck to get rid of it. My next option was Kagan, because getting in top 8 with the bounty contender is very cool. Kagan got a significant buff in set 6 in the form of Fangin the Mystical. Being able to search your Dragon Helm and have a 5/5 blocker is super good for the deck. With Hunger of the Void already in play and non-removable, Ancient Power became a 2cc counterattack that permanently removed the attacker from the board. The deck is super reliant on drawing Dragonheart early to survive until the late game. The consistency of the deck was just a tad under my comfort zone, which led me to Vanilla Torque. The most basic and generic and bland deck you can find in this game. Jokes aside, Torque is still very strong. Fangin and Elemental Manipulation gave this deck a huge boost. Elemental Manipulation gives Torque reach to deal with 3 defense Clash cards with Crimson Scales. Fangin is an incredible draw engine with Torque and it deals 2 damage to my opponent's contenders. I also ran beginning to end in my final list to deal with Clash buffs, Ancient Power, Lefties, Cybernetic Recall, and literally anything else under the sun that costs 3 CC or less. Getting the 2 blue discount is fairly easy since this is a 3-color deck. When set up correctly, this deck just does not run out of hand cards. War's Dominion calls 2 War Minions on both players' field and triggers Torque's draw effect when defeated. You can ping the War Minion with Crimson Scales to draw a card. War Strikebringer calls 2 War Minions which can be converted back to draw because of War's Dominion and or Crimson Scales. All of our team members were already locked in our deck choices except for one who spent all of day 1 playing Cadavros. Okay, I might as well show you guys this. I made a Cadavros deck in passing but never considered it for this tournament. Not only does the deck break a lot, it's also game over after one board wipe. My case in point. Bro made us stay awake all night on day 2, the night before Pro Tour, to build him an Aster deck and teach him how to pilot it. The worst part about this? He probably brought one of the best decks in the tournament. Bro probably could have taken the whole thing if he had enough practice with the deck. Aster just outscales every deck. With 1 defense and 30 health, the contender is very tough. The only problem is that green-blue Aster doesn't have good draw power. By turn 5, you're already top decking. Well, we already knew the solution. 4 Invigorating Elixir and 1 Bound. Aster can recycle it with a green trigger ender, allowing you to draw enough cards when you run out every time. So you basically don't run out of gas in this deck if you play it correctly. So anyway, this is the complete deck list of the Aster deck that we built. The idea is still the same as Ain's deck from Clash Ground Makati, but with a different draw engine. Ramp to 6 resources as fast as possible, and then drop Lone Fighter. Most decks wouldn't have an answer to it at 3 or 4 resources, so he's just a free smack to your opponent's face. This was a pretty late discovery, but this deck also works great against overwhelming burst decks, since you can just return to the top deck any bricky card they have in Oblivion back to the second to the top of their deck for them to draw. Overall, it was a great run. This was a very hype and exciting event. Big thanks to Dragon Chess for hosting the event. I did capture all of my games in top 8, and I do plan on making a commentary video on each one of them, since a lot of players have been asking for it, so stay tuned. That's all for now, contenders.